But get this, this is a Harley Davidson edition of the GMC Sierra. They currently want $94,000 for it. That says MSRP was 105, but the other sticker actually says 107. But you guys aren't gonna like this. Guess what year it is? It's actually a 2022. So this Sierra AT4 has been sitting here for 2 whole years, and the dealership still expects $94,000 for a 2-year-old, basically just jacked up appearance package GMC Sierra. It seems like common sense has been thrown right out of the window to the point that we have been on the verge of a car crash now for a couple of years, with financial tension really rising, especially these last couple months. So even though I'm going to show you some absolutely hilarious examples of completely overvalued vehicles that I've been able to find just today, this really isn't a laughing matter. The point of my video today is to talk about how the average person, which is you, which is me, can't afford a basic new car, can't even afford a decent used car. But we are at a tipping point. There is something that you can do about it. If nothing more, just by being more educated after watching this maybe 10-minute video today, so that you're less likely to get swindled and less likely to make a decision that future you is disappointed in.
Me, your future you. You made some bad money moves.
Now we're totally screwed.
Now you still work at 103. Don't make your future you hate you.
Because I don't want you to overpay on a vehicle, and these days it's really easy to overpay on a vehicle. And if you guys like what you get to see and learn today, please consider liking this video. That small act of kindness really goes a long way in helping me know you want to watch more stuff like this, but it also helps you by YouTube knowing to show you more stuff like this. Thank you. Many vehicles right now are completely overvalued, and I think that starts at the manufacturer level, because they have the MSRP, which if you really think about it, that's manufacturer suggested retail price, which is more than you should ever actually pay, because that's their suggested price, which is also the retail price, not the price when a dealership really needs to actually sell some inventory. So first of all, never pay MSRP or above. But the fact that automakers, especially the American ones, are primarily making full-size trucks and body-on-frame SUVs, that just adds to it. There's a higher profit margin for them when they make those. And I think the CEOs, the people who make the big decisions up top, are completely out of touch with reality. For instance, Dodge, Ford, and GM, the CEOs make on average about $30 million a year, which is about 400 times more than the average household income in America. So to say they are a little bit out of touch with what people, regular people, the average person can afford, I think is honestly an understatement. Just for fun, let me show you a couple examples that I've been able to find of MSRPs or even dealer markups that are just completely outrageous. Like a $98,000 Ford F-250. I honestly thought these were supposed to be work trucks. And then there's this 2024 Toyota 4Runner, and although these are really cool vehicles, they're overpriced. This one MSRP is for $57,000 as is, but then the dealership actually has the nerve to ask an extra $5,000 in markup, and then another $1,300 of more nonsense. So this is a $64,000 2024 Toyota 4Runner. That's a lot of fours. Or a $94,000 Ford Bronco Raptor, which I honestly thought these were adventure vehicles, so I guess the only place you're probably going to be adventuring to is your second and third job if you own one of these. But what if you have a big family and you want to have a somewhat luxurious SUV? This Navigator, it's a 3-row SUV, and looks like if you trade in a vehicle, you get $11,000 off. But what's the MSRP? It's $111,000, so you're still going to be paying $100,000 for this 1-year-old Lincoln Navigator, which in 10 years it's probably going to be worth about $10,000. Or this $70,000 Tundra that also has about $1,300 of dealer markup added on. Or how about this, a 2023 Ford F-150 Lightning, which Ford actually thought that some sucker would pay $95,000 for this. Yet here we are a year later and it's still sitting on the lot. So if you aren't making $30 million a year and you just happen to be the average Joe, you're probably making about $77,000 a year gross household income, and there's a 65% chance that you're living paycheck to paycheck, which is actually 7% higher than it was last year. Furthermore, even if you make over $100,000 a year, there's now a 50% chance that you're living paycheck to paycheck because of inflation. The cities you live in, sometimes it is spending behaviors and lifestyle creep, but in general, people don't have money for new vehicles or used vehicles. And honestly, if it's wise to spend only 10% of your budget on a vehicle, that's less than $480 a month for the average person. And after you factor in insurance, gas, and maintenance, there's literally no money left for a vehicle. And depending on where you are in the country, inventory is still few and far between, or some dealers are very plentiful. There's literally such a variety. But this dealership, you may notice, literally only has trucks inventory. A lot of them are used, but some of the GMCs are brand new, and some of the GMC SUVs. But automakers are basically only making SUVs and trucks these days. Again, kind of those big vehicles that have a higher profit margin. There's not very many cars and as many crossovers being made, unless you're shopping the Japanese brands, which they do have a lot of good variety, especially if you're looking at Subaru, Nissan, honestly, even Hyundai now. Mazda, some of those type of dealerships, they have a lot better deals, a lot better values, and usually their vehicles are cheaper than the average new car, because the average new car right now is $47,000, which thankfully is a few percent lower than the peak, when at the end of 2022, the average new car is $49,000, and currently the average used car is in the mid-upper $20,000 ballpark. And everyone wants to make a buck, and when you're in the business of buying a new car, if you can't pay outright in cash, which is what I would recommend you do, you're going to be taken advantage of and be the customer of several different business models. So whether you're paying interest, maybe 5 to 9% on a new car, 8 to 20% on a used car, or you're paying the markup by buying it at a dealership, which on average is about $2,400 that the dealer profits on a used car, or about 5% of the vehicle's value on a used car. You're basically paying everyone just to drive the car. So if you can pay cash, if you can pay in full, and skip insurance and skip markups, you're going to be better off. Plus, you're going to know the history of the vehicle if you are buying a used vehicle. But if you're stuck in the averages, you are paying over $700 a month for your average new car payment. $700 a month, that, again, mathematically, statistically, you and most people, at least 2/3 of people, do not actually have to be making payments on a depreciating liability like this. But furthermore, vehicles on average lose about 10 to 15% of their value in the first year, and over the first 5 years or 60 months, on average, they lose 60% of your value. And since the average car loan at over $700 a month goes for about 68 months, chances are when you're still paying for it at the 60-month mark, your $47,000 car is now only worth maybe $18,000. And so ultimately, I'm just pretty concerned because I don't live in an area that's overly well off, and I don't know how people are affording such nice vehicles. Because even just looking at the street and the vehicles that come down, there really are a lot of nice vehicles and a lot of newer vehicles, and statistically the average person can't afford what they're driving. So maybe that's why I often see so many 2022 to 2024 used vehicles on the lot that they have to be repossessed and sold back and things like that. But I just don't know what's going on, and I really hope that we don't have another recession that's related to the car market, kind of like the housing market only 15 years ago, where banks overloaned, people can actually afford what they had signed for, and all of a sudden a lot of people are in trouble. But there is a way out. Basically, just don't keep up with the Joneses. Don't try to show off to your neighbor. Drive what you can afford. Drive what you can pay cash for, ideally. Maybe save up. It's going to take some sacrifice, but I think you in the long run are going to be happier and definitely better off financially. And that doesn't mean that you don't get to drive a nice, safe car. Honestly, just drive something that's even a few years old that's already taken a 50% depreciation hit. And chances are, a few years ago, cars didn't have that many fewer safety features than they do now. A lot of those are electronic anyways. And even if you want to get a used luxury car, those lose value even faster than the average car at that 60% in 60 months. So you really do have a lot of options. You just have to be open to them. Especially when the fact is, once you buy a brand new car and you drive it 100 feet off the dealer lot, it is now a used car, and that's all it is to someone else. So just like you're buying a used car and you might think less of it, it really isn't any different than when you first drive yours off the pavement parking lot. Not everyone needs a fancy living room experience just to drive to the grocery store or to make it across town, especially when so many people are overextending themselves and having to work second or third jobs and be away from their family, their loved ones, and doing the things that they enjoy doing just to pay for their overpriced, overvalued, quickly depreciating transportation. Their set of four wheels. I'm a car enthusiast. I love cars, but you gotta be practical. You gotta know where the limit is and what lines to cross and what lines not to cross. And that's coming from me, someone who historically buys a brand new vehicle every 2 years, but I do make sure to pay them off in full in cash when I first buy them. And then usually in about 2 years, I could go through the powertrain warranty, and then I'm ready for the new experience. But I have never And I mean it, I have never been less interested in buying a new vehicle than I have right now. And in fact, my daily driver I've had for about 2.5 years, which I know that might seem silly. I know that might not seem like much, but that's actually a pretty big deal for me because usually it would have been replaced about half a year ago. So ultimately, just remember that the way that you can help, the way that you can be involved is by not overpaying for a vehicle. Manufacturers long term can only produce what actually sells. So if we take a stand, if we stop buying overvalued, overloaded $90,000 trucks and go back to buying $30,000 loaded, even if it is for a while, the Japanese SUVs, which honestly are probably more reliable than most of the American products anyways, I think we can help normalize the market. Manufacturers can't sell what we don't buy, and I know that they've been trying to make a lot of profit margins by having a more expensive vehicle because they don't have to sell as many to make the same income to pay their CEOs $30 million, but it's completely out of hand. They're out of touch with the average American, and a $47,000 average vehicle transaction price in America is completely absurd. And as I wrap up this video, I wanted to apologize for the wind we've been having today, but if you got anything out of this video, please like this video. Let me know in the comments your thoughts and opinions. I can only speak to what I've seen personally, and I know that's a lot different than what you guys have sometimes seen in your area because there is a lot of discrepancy between states, between counties, across the world, wherever you guys are watching from. So comment below your thoughts and opinions and what you have witnessed, what you've noticed. But ultimately, I just don't want you guys to overpay for a vehicle, and I don't want you to make a bad financial decision. So do your research. Call other dealerships. Shop around. It might be worth a day of traveling to save a few $1,000s, and never pay over MSRP. Never pay for markups. That's complete nonsense. And with that said, I wish you guys the best. I hope to see you again. Until then, take care.